Hello. We're back talking about Daniel and the discipleship lessons that we can learn from him. No, we're not studying about the prophecy of Daniel and going through and doing a word study like I like to do. But what we're doing is looking at how does this apply to my life? How can I live a better life? Today we're talking about identity theft. It's a real issue today. It's a real problem. It's something that many people, I would say many Americans, but people around the world face. And it's nothing new. It started in Daniel. No, they didn't steal his credit card or his bank account, but they did try to steal his identity. Daniel chapter 1, verses 6 and 7. Now from among those of the sons of Judah were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. To them the chief of the eunuchs gave names. He gave to Daniel the name of Belteshazzar, to Hananiah, Shadrach, to Mishael, Meshach, and to Azariah, Abednego. You might think, well, boy, I'm glad that he changed their names, because, they're kind of hard to say. Hananiah, Azariah, Mishael. Daniel was the only one with an easy name. But you know what? Here's our lesson. Identity theft. The enemy wants to steal your identity. And Satan is attacking our identity all the time. Our name has so much value to it. Your name represents who you are. Stealing identity started way back in the book of Genesis. Genesis chapter 1. As soon as God created man, God said, let us make man in our image according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Then God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and subdue. Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. And have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, over every living thing that moves on the air. And God said, see, I have given you every herb that yields seed, which is on the face of the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed to you shall be food. And also to every beast of the earth, to every bird of the air, to everything that creeps on the earth in which there is life. I have given you green herbs for food. And it was so. God created man and woman way back, Genesis 1, in those very first 6 days of creation. And he says, I've given you authority over everything on the earth. He says, this is yours. You can have it. I want you to take everything here, and I want you to have dominion over it, to subdue it. He says, it's for your good. And so this is what man was intended to do. But then along in Genesis 3, the serpent comes. And it says the serpent was the most beautiful of everything that God created. And he said, did God really say? Eve was deceived, and she decided that she was going to believe the serpent and not believe what God had said. And at that point, sin entered the world. And at that point, Adam and Eve were cast out of the garden. And they lost their dominion. They lost their right. They lost their identity as rulers over the earth. See, it started back in Genesis for us, for mankind. But it's not just us. Satan tried to pull the same thing with Jesus. In Matthew chapter 4, it was after Jesus, he was born and now he's a man, and he had just been baptized. And after that, it says in chapter 4, verses 1 through 4, then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. And when he had 40 days and 40 nights, he fasted, and afterwards he was hungry. Now when the tempter came to him and he said, if you are the Son of God, command these stones to become bread. He says, if that's who you are, let's prove it. Prove it to me. Just like in Genesis, did God really say? Here he's saying, are you really the Son of God? Jesus didn't get into an argument. He knew who he was. And because he knew who he wasn't going to argue about his identity. He said, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. He says, I know who I am. I don't have to argue with you. My name, Jesus, the Anointed One, that says who I am. Your name represents who you are. My name, Elizabeth. Consecrate it to God. My middle name, Anne. Grace of God. That's who I am. It speaks to me of who I am and of my purpose and of my future. And that's the reason why God has so many names in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. I am. That's what he said to Moses. He says, whatever you need, I am. Whatever you come up against, just say, I am. It doesn't matter what you're facing. I am is with you. He knew that. And so now we have Daniel and 3 of his friends. They've been carried captive into Babylon. And the chief of the eunuchs, look at them. And he hears their names. And said, wait a minute. That's not going to fly here in Babylon. We got to do something about these. We got to put these guys in their place. We've got to bring them into subjection to us so that they'll understand who we want them to be and not who they are. And so they tried to steal their identity. The first one they attacked was Daniel. Now, the name Daniel means God is my judge. God is the righteous one. God is the one that I call on, and he will be my vindicator. He's the one that will declare for me what the verdict is. But what did they want to change his name to? Belteshazzar? Well, that's, it might be a little hard to spell, but what's so wrong with that? Well, Belteshazzar means lady, protect the king. Satan, with Daniel himself, was attacking his manhood, his gender, and his strength. He's saying, look, You're not really a man. Let's get rid of this whole gender thing, this gender identity. Yeah, that's not a new problem today. It goes back to Daniel, when they tried to change his name to Belteshazzar. And if you read through the book of Daniel, Daniel maintained his name. Mm-hmm. You know, we don't read about Belteshazzar and the lion's den. No. We read about Daniel and the lion's den. He says, God is my judge. He's going to vindicate me. He is going to declare who I am and what I will be. And he's going to say, I'm innocent. I can go free. He is the one that is going to declare, not only am I not guilty, but I can possess and I can keep everything that I have. He allowed Daniel to keep his manhood, his gender, and his strength. I mean, Daniel was an old man when he was in that lion's den. He was an older man when the handwriting on the wall appeared. But you know what? He was still strong. He kept his strength. He was strong physically, and he was strong spiritually. Don't let the enemy steal your strength. Hananiah means Jehovah is gracious. And what? His name was changed to Shadrach, which means I'm fearful of God. Satan was attacking his confidence and the security that he had both with the Lord and in the Lord. He wanted him to go from a place of knowing that God is so good to me. Everything that I have comes from him. And even though I'm in a captive in the land of Babylon, God is going to be with me and God is going to bless me no matter what circumstances I'm in and no matter what the people are doing. God is good to me. They wanted him to be afraid. They wanted him to be afraid not of the circumstances, not of the people. They wanted him to be afraid of God. That's what they wanted. And Satan was attacking his security that he had with the Lord, making him think, God's not able to take care of me. I don't know. I just don't know that I can trust God anymore. No. He was Hananiah. He says, I've got confidence because God, Jehovah, is gracious with me. Well, what about the next one? Mishael. That means who is what God is. Who is what God is? What does that mean? It means there is no God like my God. Oh, yes. His name was changed to Meshach. Now, Meshach means I am despised and humiliated. Satan was attacking his witness and trying to silence him with shame. He said, instead of saying there's no God like my God, he said, no, I want you to believe that you're humiliated, that you're despised. You're despised by God. You're despised by people. No one's going to listen to you. You have no place, and you have no authority with people or with God. That's what Satan wants us to think. Satan was attacking his witness and trying to silence him with shame. Why? Because he wants to shut the mouths of Christians. Revelation 12:11 says, they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. Oh, Satan is doing everything he can today to silence believers, to get us to stop speaking the truth, to get us to stop saying what God is saying, to get us to stop acknowledging who God is and what he can do in our situation. That's what his deal is. He's saying, let's silence all the believers. Let's get them to forget about God, not talk about God. Have you noticed how much difficulty you have talking about God in public? on social media, maybe even in your own circle of friends and family. People don't want to hear who God is, and they certainly don't want to hear there's no God like my God. Finally, Azariah. Azariah means Jehovah is my help, and his name was changed to Abednego, which means the servant of Nebo. Satan was attacking his ability to live as a son of God. He wants to make slaves out of us. But Azariah said, Jehovah is my help. Yeah. Think about that scripture. The name is a strong tower, and the righteous run into it and are safe. Satan wants us to forget the safety that we have. Society wants us to forget that Jehovah, that Jesus, that God is the one who offers help to us. He is the only one that can get us out of these situations that we're in and the problems that we're facing. And we need to recognize who God is in every situation. I don't think Nebuchadnezzar had any idea what he had brought in to his country and his kingdom of Babylon. When he brought in the one that says and stood for, God is my judge, Jehovah is gracious. Who is what God is? Jehovah is my help. Those 4 men stood up. They refused to let their identity be stolen. They knew that they were children of the Most High God. They knew that God had made a difference in their life, and now they were out to make a difference in the kingdom of Babylon. They were out to make a difference in history for all time. Stand up for who you are. Don't let the enemy steal your identity. Protect your identity as a believer the same way you would protect your social security number, the same way you would protect your phone, the same way you would protect anything else that has to do with your identity. Protect it and know that when you stand up for God, He will certainly protect you, protect your identity, and stand up for you.